Magandang umaga po mga kaibigan. Tayo po'y magkakasama na naman sa ating Roundtable with PPI. At ngayong umagang ito, pag-uusapan natin ano na ang follow-up natin doon sa sektor ng edukasyon matapos tamaan ng COVID-19 noong nakalipas na taon. We invited resource persons from all over to join us at mapapag-usapan po naman ang issue na bumabalot dito. Pero before we go any further, let's have a few words from Ariel of PPI. Ariel, please go ahead.
Magandang umaga po sa ating lahat. Wherever you are, I hope you're all safe and we've started the year right. Isa pong usapin ang edukasyon ang pinaka mahalagang pag-usapan po. We started talking about it last year in one of our episodes, and welcome everyone to the first episode for this year. And we'd like to thank Untitled Foundation again for supporting us, for supporting PPI with all its activities this year and also last year. Hindi po madaling kumuha ng partner sa sa panahon ng pandemya, pero nagpapasalamat po kami sa Untitled Foundation for really saying yes to our proposed activities this year. Marami pong nagsasabi na kailangan natin pag-usapan ang edukasyon dahil ito ay unang-unang mahalagang usapin ngayon. What with what's going on right now, pero that's beside the point. But I think personally, I've been talking to a lot of teachers, tsaka mga estudyante din. I know the difficulty they've been going through, pero I think we have to continue discussing itong usapin na to kasi it is the only way para mapakinggan natin sila. And also from our experts today, mahalagang pakinggan natin dahil maraming nanonood ngayon FB Live. And shout out po sa lahat ng nanonood outside of the meeting room. I hope you'll enjoy, not only enjoy, but I think learn a thing or two from all these discussions this morning. And thank you very much to our moderator, Melo Acuna, for really efficiently handling the roundtable. On that note, I'd like to introduce to you the resident representative to the Philippines of Untitled Foundation, Attorney Guts Heineke, for his remarks.
Yes, good morning.
Hello, Guts, are you there?
Still can't see him?
Perhaps we can call Carol first on behalf of Untitled Foundation, and we will let Guts speak later on.
Sure. Okay. Yes, Carol.
Caroline Lee is the project director of Untitled Foundation in the Philippines. Hi, Carol. Good morning to you. Unmute.
Yes, okay. Unmute, please.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you for that. Happy to be with you all here. Good
Okay.
morning.
Pleased to have you too.
Yeah. Well, just a few words about the Untitled Foundation. It is a German NGO, and with the goal to build up democracy and good governance, and for the Untitled Foundation, a well-informed and independent journalist community is essential and necessary for democratic and peaceful development. And that's why we are really glad to be working with the Philippine Press Institute, very active group of journalists in civic journalism in the Philippines. And we're totally looking forward to a rich and dynamic exchange this morning. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol.
All right. Thank you, Carol, and thank you, Ariel. Well, I'd like to apologize. Nagkaroon ng glitches just a few minutes ago. Biglang pinapalitan yung password ko sa Facebook at nag-bug down yung internet connection. But just the same, the show must go on. Sabi nga it's not your set, folks. Yep. Okay, so let's begin. We're joined by guests from all over. We're joined by Mr. Rafael Cada from the Southeast Asian Ministers of Education Organization, or SIAMIO, based in Bangkok. We're joined by Undersecretary Dad San Antonio of the Department of Education. He's speaking for on behalf of good friend Secretary Liling Briones. We're joined by Attorney Joseph Noel Estrada of Cocopea. We have Love Basiliote, the Executive Director of Philippine Business for Education. We're also joined by Mark Arthur Abalos of Globe. And let me see. Miguel is also with us. He's also from Globe. Miguel Bermundo, and Dr. Bert Tuga of the Philippine Normal University. We also invited, for the record, we also invited our friends from PLDT Smart, but they failed to join us today. But anyway, let's start with a situationer from ASEAN. So our good friend Rafi from Siamio would tell us how it is, no? How is it in the region? Especially the region is moving towards one ASEAN community. Rafi, please.
Yes, good morning po to everyone, to the organizers of this roundtable, to Sir Melo, and to all the speakers joining us this morning, to the officers of DepEd, a pleasant morning to everyone, and to all the co-speakers. So, Dr. Ethel has requested me to attend this to represent SIMIO as the regional intergovernmental organization that deals with education, science, and culture in the 11 SIMIO member states. So basically, we represent, the education in the ASEAN, the 11 ASEAN, 10 ASEAN countries, including Timor-Leste for the 11. So please allow me to share the presentation that Dr. Ethel wished to give. Unfortunately, Dr. Ethel is attending another session right now with the British Columbia Council of Education.
Yes, please go ahead.
Good morning to all of you. I'm very, very honored to join you today. This morning, I'll be discussing three parts. First, I will share how the Ministries of Education have responded to the challenges brought by the COVID-19 pandemic. Second, I'll be sharing remote education, including reopening strategies. And lastly, what are the key steps as Southeast Asia prepares for the new normal? The future remains challenging in Southeast Asia due to the pandemic, which affected the GDP growth forecasts, and COVID-19 has also affected all of the economic conditions, bringing economic losses, supply chain disruptions due to lockdown and quarantine measures, which have affected merchandise trade, notably from Singapore, Vietnam, Cambodia, Malaysia, and Thailand. Also, temporarily close all public places, which weigh on special services, especially tourism. And Philippines, for example, is a country reliant on remittances, also suffered hard with declining remittances from overseas Filipino workers, which affected consumption as well as investment. These are the contexts where the Ministries of Education in Southeast Asia have found themselves in due to the lockdown. Schools were closed and Ministries of Education have to resort to innovation, starting with transitioning from face-to-face to alternative delivery modalities, flexible learning, and remote education. In terms of COVID-19 responses, Ministries of Education immediately activated flexible learning modalities, starting with maximization of online learning management systems, development of learning modules, and even utilizing our radio and TV broadcast channels as alternative learning platforms. Ministries of Education in Southeast Asia have responded to the challenges brought by the COVID-19 pandemic, launching different flexible learning modalities. From the whole of nation approach of Brunei Darussalam, the establishment of Center for Digital Education of Cambodia, The circuit breaker strategy combining home-based learning and digital education of Singapore, the push for distance learning, offline, online blended approaches of Indonesia, the development of ICT and alternative learning modalities for Lao PDR, the digital learning platform and holistic flexible learning strategy of Malaysia, the development of online and alternative learning of Myanmar, the Thailand education ecosystem model, the learning continuity platform for basic education of the Philippines using as well modular instructions, education application and SMS-based learning for Timor-Leste, and open educational resources, video materials, television broadcast for Vietnam. Despite all of these interventions, more needs to be done to ensure that no one is left behind. So the ministries of education also face, challenges in safely reopening schools. Despite all of this, the threats to infection, COVID-19, schools initiatives, including rehabilitation and resurgence planning, have been thought of. Social distancing policies, health and sanitation protocols, and availability of temperature checks, disinfection points were set in motion in Southeast Asian countries. As I speak, all countries in Southeast Asia have already reopened. Many started reopening in July and few came in late in October. But shifting and strategic rescheduling of classes to avoid congestions were also considered in an effort to reduce the risk of, having COVID-19. Blended remote education flexible learning modalities were thought of, especially for the countries with ready infrastructure. Massive information dissemination campaigns were also undertaken. We should be aware of the protocols, especially where infections are, where they can be detected, and school should be safe. Critical gap assessment were also undertaken. Remediation to ensure that there will be no learning lost. Lastly, the only way to move forward is to move together and to do all of this strengthening of collaboration, strategic partnership. And I am confident that if we work together, we will triumph over all of these difficulties.
So that is the presentation of Dr. Ethel. So you will see the varied approach in the 11 SIMIO member states. So we'd like to say that there's no silver bullet to this. We need to have a more contextual approach. So makikita po natin that in the 11 member states, may mga different levels of opening. In fact, like in Indonesia, meron silang color coding scheme. Depending on the caseload per province, per area, that is where they're doing it. But right now, we're in the middle of another resurgence. In fact, in the presentation of Dr. Ethel, there's this concept that was introduced, resurgence planning, and that is now being set into action because of the second wave or sometimes even third wave in other countries. So that resurgence planning will trigger ano yung mga conditions that should be present for the school to be closed, what are the steps to be taken, how can the schools and the learners in particularly to transition to alternative learning modalities. So if you will remember the presentation, while there's most of the countries in Southeast Asia have online learning platforms, maraming other options, alternative learning modalities like the modules, like peer mentoring and teaching. All of these are happening in the region. So
Okay.
that is the presentation coming from us here in SIMIO headquarters in Bangkok, Thailand. Thank you very much.
All right, please stand by. Diyan ka lang muna at maraming sigurong magtatanong sa iyo. Pero let's hear from our good friend, Undersecretary Dad San Antonio, because definitely this is of importance. No? Bakit mahalaga ito? Sapagkat unang-una, maraming mga bata ang umaasa na makapapasok na sila. Magkakaroon na ng face-to-face instructions. But at the last minute, hindi muna tinuloy ng ating pamahalaan. Mr. Undersecretary, how are we doing at the Department of Education? Please join us.
Good morning, Sir Melo. Good morning to my fellow panelists. We know that the Department of Education has been able to formulate a learning continuity plan collaboratively with our internal stakeholders in the Department of Education and also with the partners under the Edu Forum. And we really know that delivering basic education services during these COVID-19 times would be a challenge. And somehow we were able to start the school year last October in the midst of difficulties and challenges because of the support of our stakeholders, development partners, and even local government executives. So we also, initially in the LCP, the Learning Continuity Plan, we really identified blended learning as an option where there would be an element of face-to-face classes. But being an executive agency, I mean, we belong to the executive branch, and we know that we are supposed to implement presidential decisions. So we always would implement the decision of the president. But we will always be ready when situations allow. We will continue to prepare ourselves with the idea of a possible limited face-to-face if the situations will warrant in different areas. But because we cannot do it now, we are now in the third week of or second week of Q2. We are continuously delivering basic education services using the options we offered online with not so many learners in the public sector. And then we do digital modular for those without reliable internet access. And many of the learners are into the use of paper-based printed modules, self-learning modules. And our TV and radio broadcasts are also ongoing. We are producing the episodes that we have committed to produce. And so we also are always monitoring what's happening. So we made adjustments. The secretary has instructed me to issue as early as before November a memo appealing for academic ease or pushing for academic ease in the light of the fact that many learners appear to be overwhelmed by the activities being requested of them. So we, although it should be understood that after almost 7 months of disengagement from academic task, many learners really found the activities to be too much. So we said we will be flexible, we will be considerate, we will not be very strict in terms of deadlines. And our initial feedback is, yeah, there are many learners that have been able to cope. Although there are also people saying that there are also learners not being able to submit the requirements. But when we requested the regional directors to make a report, the data that have been submitted to us indicate that generally the learners were able to carry out the activities expected of them for the first quarter.
Yeah. Yun ang worry ko kasi Undersecretary Dads. Nung kasing estudyante ako, may mga kaklase kami na pumapasa because of attendance. Eh wala ngayong checking ng attendance dahil online. Baka hindi na pumasa. But anyway, we'll talk about it later. Ano yung naging impact sa private education ng COVID-19? Attorney Estrada, please. What have you received so far?
Yes, good morning Melo. Alam nyo, Sir Melo, madalas akong natatanong ngayon kamusta daw ang update sa closures ng schools. So sabi ko, pwede bang update on recovery? Wag naman sa closure, no? So I just would like to give an update kasi yung usapan ng whether tayo ba ay tutuloy pa sa operations or not, hindi na muna namin tinitingnan yan. that was relevant before, no? Before the opening of the classes. Pero sa ngayon, I think the general sentiment for all private schools is that it is not an option to close now. We are in the middle of the school year. So we're talking about sustainability. We're trying to adapt to the new normal. And so far, we have engaged the government into some economic recovery initiatives. Unang-una yung naipasa po yung Bayanihan to Heal as One Act number 2 no nung September. So meron po kami doon, Cocopea pushed for economic packages no for our students and our employees also and to institutions. At ang update po ngayon sa higher education, estudyante nakatanggap po ng 5,000 para sa kanilang mga balances from last school year. Malaking tulong na rin po 'yon kahit maliit ang amount. It has so far assisted around 50,000 students in higher education institutions all over the country, mga private colleges and universities po yan. So it helped a lot also. The sector, yun pong sa basic ed, meron din pong 300 million na nakalaan para sa assistance naman ng mga students in basic education sa mga private schools, but we're still awaiting the DepEd guidelines and for its rollout, no? So siguro po malapit na. Siguro si USEC Dads can also help us follow up. It will really help us a lot, no? So marami namang kami nagpapasalamat. Different levels in the government are helping us, no, from legislature to executive, and also GSIS just recently launched a loan program for its members, dependents nila in colleges and universities. Up to the third degree of consanguinity and affinity, no? Tapos 10-year loan, 100,000 per school year up to 5 years. Ang repayment is on the 6th year, no? So malaking bagay din po 'yan. Maraming mga nasa gobyerno ang kanilang mga dependents nag-aaral sa mga private colleges and universities. So we're looking at this, pero we're focused on future proofing our schools, and yung next months and probably weeks would also determine that how we will move forward. Pinag-uusapan po yung limited face-to-face classes, pagbabalik nito. Pero ang movement po is on higher education because we have the higher age groups there. At well, the general perception is it is safer for them, and that there's some urgency because of the college students who are in their senior years, yung mga nag-OJT, practicum, internships, so baka sila yung uunahin. And I think also the vaccine, if we're saying that when vaccine becomes available, that's the only time we think of going back to the schools, mukhang matatagalan yung sa basic ed dahil yung available na vaccine yata is for 18 years old and above, no? So far, yung mga available sa atin sa local governments and to the national government. So ito yung mga tinitingnan namin, but again, when we prepared for the new normal, hindi po namin tiningnan ito na something that's temporary and for a short term. This will really be the new normal. So we're focused on teaching our learners to navigate well into the internet. So we're focusing on digital citizenship, media literacy, and of course yung cyber wellness and security, kasi hindi po ito temporary. And we're now more focused on the learners, less on the educators and the education itself and the system, because we have learned, kung tinatanong niyo anong impact, COVID-19 has taught us to focus more on the essentials, which is more on the learners rather than the system and the content, no? Because the students can get this from many sources, no? Not only through formal education. So we try to teach them media literacy, no? And teaching them the proper way of learning, no? Discerning, because I think this will be the more important aspects of their education, no, moving forward. So yun lang muna, Sir Melo. Maraming salamat po.
Okay, napakagandang larawan nun. More on the survival mode ang schools. Pero from PBED, you had a press briefing some time ago and you talked about the headwinds being faced by the sector. Good morning, Ms. Love Basiliote.
Good morning, Sir Melo. Good morning, PPI, salamat sa invitation. Para lang sa mga hindi nakakilala sa Philippine Business for Education, isa po kaming non-profit organization na sinimulan ng mga bigatin na business leaders sa Pilipinas who are really concerned about education, and because they think that it is key to national growth and development and also competitiveness. Yung nasabi nga ni Sir Melo, last week nagkaroon po kami ng press briefing on the state of learning in the Philippines. So hindi lang siya education, kasi yung education medyo malaki talaga, sistema talaga yun. Para sa amin, the clear indicator of the performance of an education system is whether the students are learning. So yung kung mga estudyante, natututo ba sila? Prior sa pandemic, itong problema ng pagkatuto or learning, matagal na tong it's been a while that we've been facing this, no? And nakita natin yon sa recent international assessments na kung saan nag-participate yung Pilipinas. Nung inassess yung 15-year-olds natin, so nasa grades 10, 11, hulit po tayo sa 78 countries or economies na nag-participate. Nung participate din tayo sa math, science assessment ng TIMSS noong 2019. Huli din po tayo sa around 68 economies. And then sa Southeast Asia naman, and I'm sure our colleague Rafi can also speak to this, when we were assessed, yung grades, ano naman natin yun, grade 5 if I'm not mistaken, yeah, grade 5 in reading, writing, and math. Medyo nasa middling po yung performance natin. Mga kaklase natin, nasa mga Laos, Cambodia. So, we're really concerned na itong pandemya, napalala pa niya yung sitwasyon ng pagkatuto ng mga estudyante natin. Bakit? Una, itong mahaba kasi yung pag-postpone ng pag-open ng academic year. Supposedly, nag-start tayo ng June, October na po tayo nagsimula. So sinabi nga ni Yusek Dads, diba, na 7 months na wala sila sa paaralan. Tapos, when we did open our academic year, our school year, the instructions and learning were happening remotely. And we know naman the state of internet in this country. Buti nga tayo may internet, and kung yung meron, medyo tagilid pa. Kaya kanina, di ba, medyo nahirapan pa tayong mag-connect. Kung tutuusin, a lot of students don't have access to these online modalities. Yung blended na sinasabi na with like modules and a mix of printed, okay naman yun, at least meron, 'di ba? Pero di ko alam yung mga may ano dito, may mga pamangkin, anak, or may kakilalang estudyante. Medyo tagilid din tayo dyan sa mga printed modules kasi nung holidays, nakita ko yung pamangkin ko, medyo iba yung sumasagot sa modules niya. Medyo binulgar ko yung, I hope the teacher of my niece isn't watching. But at least yung pamangkin ko may guidance, no? Pero what if yung mga estudyante na wala, yung parents nila hindi din nakapag-aral, so medyo konti lang talaga yung guidance na nakukuha ng mga estudyante natin sa bahay. So para sa amin sa PBED, imperative talaga na we address this learning crisis. Crisis na po siya, hindi lang siya problema. Kasi medyo nagbi-build up na siya, malaki na siya na problema. It's multi-stakeholder, hindi lang to DepEd problem. It's the private sector is involved, business community, civil society. We really need to have everyone on board. And that because it is multi-sectoral, it also has to be multi-player. And it will require a lot of resources. Bakit? Kasi we need to really rethink and solve this health crisis para maayos natin kung paano natin mata-transition and to really implement the learning continuity plan. Kasi yung LCP, it includes face-to-face. So how can we safely transition to that? Addressing the online disparities, the digital divide, yung sinasabi nga, kasi marami yung hindi connected to the internet at walang learning devices, ganon. We also need to address the welfare of our teachers kasi hindi sila talaga yung mga frontliners. kung tutuusin, they are essential workers to our, not just to our education system, but also in our communities. And then lastly, we also need to make sure that we think about this in a structural and organizational level. Kasi hindi lang to individual na itong paral na to, itong department na to, etc. But really looking at it as a whole. Kasi yung education and learning, as I said, it is multi-sectoral, it is multi-player, and it is also multimodal. Hindi lang siya limited sa education. Nutrition comes into play, the role of businesses comes into play. So that said, I'm really excited for the conversation this morning kasi I'm looking forward to the insights from our colleagues in the Zoom room, in the room. And I want to say also that, DepEd has really been pulling its weight, but it takes more than DepEd. It really needs every one of us to help out. And I hope that because this pandemic is making us see what is really essential, as what Attorney Erap or Joseph said, we hope that we see education as an essential part of our recovery. If we are to recover from this pandemic, we really need to address this learning crisis. And I hope I can count on everyone's support, especially the media, to highlight this problem, but also to highlight the solutions that we can all do together. Maraming salamat.
Okay. And that's just the opening statements ng ating mga resource persons. Kaya lang, isang mahalagang binanggit ng PBED doon sa kanilang briefing yung teacher quality. Nagkataon, yung Philippine Normal University is the Center for Excellence in Teacher Education. Dr. Bertuga, how is it? Anong naging impact ng COVID-19 sa Philippine Normal University? Hindi na normal yung sitwasyon, di ba, Dr. Bert?
Good morning. Thank you, Sir Melo, and also good morning to the fellow panelists and our friends from PPI. Ang biruan nga namin sa PNU, baka ang pangalan na namin ay Philippine New Normal University. But going back to your question, first on safety mechanisms, I would like to start with that. Like other public and private universities in the Philippines, we have set up also our COVID-19 protocol to avoid the spread of the virus in the campus and also to protect our internal stakeholders. We have intensified our COVID prevention campaigns and also our measures such as health monitoring, contact tracing, and we have purchased COVID-19 related supplies and equipment. We also implemented alternative work arrangement based on CSC guidelines and minimized the number of people going to the campus, and also implemented online platforms to transact business with the university. So ito pong scheme na ito ay ongoing pa rin until now. But in terms of continuity of learning, I think you are more interested on what we did in terms of teaching and learning. We were able to migrate or transition to the flexible learning modality on the first term of academic year 2020 to 2021. That was covering the months of September to December of 2020. We call the program Kaway Aralan sa Bagong Kadawian, or flexible learning in the new normal. Our modality utilizes different designs such as full online, a combination of synchronous and asynchronous modality, full offline using printed modules, and of course the blended modality. Reflecting on our experience last year, 2020, we realized that what we did for term 1 was emergency remote learning. Now that we are in term 2 of the academic year, we can say we are now in full remote learning. So let me just differentiate the two. Why emergency remote learning in the beginning? We were actually on emergency mode during term 1, and like the other universities, both public and private, migrating to remote learning or flexible learning was abrupt, and everyone was grappling in the dark. Our focus then, Sir Melo, was more on socio-emotional learning, and our guiding principle in the implementation of our learning modality was compassion and empathy. Achieving learning outcomes, for us, that's very important, but during that term, that was secondary to our concerns. We just wanted our students to feel the support of the university because it was more hand-folding for both faculty and students to navigate this sudden shift in education. But alongside the many adjustments we carried out, we approached the transition from the point of view of research. What worked, what did not work. And we put in place a monitoring system and evaluation system to facilitate this. So term 2 is another narrative. We have more experience, we know better, we have more confidence, and we have scaled the learning curve, so to speak. So perhaps the biggest issue now is the level of independence and motivation of our students. Both faculty and teachers are more prepared already. And while we are still on transition, little by little, we are seeing the evolving shape of remote learning as eventually a new modality of 21st century education. As what Attorney Strada mentioned a while ago, we don't look at it as going back to the old ways now in education. I think what we need is to sustain and strengthen our current modalities. Thank you po.
Okay, basic question siguro para sa ating mga kababayan. Well, I was a public school pupil sa Zamora, sa Pasay, and we really enjoyed having student teachers from Philippine Normal College. Nagpa-practice teaching sila sa aming eskwelahan. Pero paano magpa-practice teaching ngayon na walang face-to-face? Ano ang sistema, Dr. Tuga?
Well, that's actually a very timely question because I think last week we just had our ceremony on sending off our practice teachers as they begin this very important phase of their education life. But PNU will implement the online practice teaching. We can do this because 3 out of 5 of our campuses have laboratory schools operating under flexible learning setup as well. For the other 2 campuses that have no laboratory schools, we're looking into the strategy of limited engagements with DepEd schools, also implementing different modalities of learning. So the shift that we're looking into is more on experiential and learning by doing, using modules and using the PNU learning management system for online engagements with mentors and supervisors. So basically, we are exploring these alternative modalities for practice teaching. There was already an initial work done by the Department of Education and the Commission on Higher Education, and they're about to issue a joint joint policy on how to conduct the practice teaching for teacher education students.
Okay, all right. Connectivity. How innovative are we compared to our other ASEAN neighbors? Let's hear from Mark Arthur Abalos of Globe Telecom. Yes, how are things going on at Globe?
Hi, Sir Melo. Good morning, everyone. Everything's doing great. Everyone is busy pa rin naman kami sa Globe. We have been very active in terms of providing connectivity as well as, of course, programs suited for schools, educational institutions, as well as, of course, institutions that require connectivity as well as other solutions so that we will be able to continue learning. So kami naman sa Globe in Education, we, as much as possible, give all our support to our counterparts in the public and private industry. So this presentation is just a brief overview of what we have been doing, and together with Miguel, we'll be presenting the different programs and aspects of Globe in Education. So why is there Globe in Education? Because we want to create better experiences for everyone, and of course these experiences impact the lives of people in the best way that we can. And we aim to improve how students learn with technology and help change their lives with better quality. So this would, of course, lead to create better learning experiences. 3 points, important, of course, important to improve quality of education through and elevate quality of. So kami naman sa Globe also, our mission is we want to help Filipinos build a better life and fulfill their dreams by providing a lot of learning opportunities for all. And our vision is we want to transform Philippine schools and empower every Filipino through world-class connectivity and learning technologies. So when the pandemic started, even before the pandemic started, we started putting all our resources together, and we have partnered with different ecosystem players and partners so that we'll be able to build all these solutions. No, so aside from connectivity, and we understand that there's a lot of schools that are needing this right now. We also have technical infrastructure and the devices plus the solutions, even automating the workflow operations in schools as well as digital learning through our LMS partners. Um, Together with Miguel, as I mentioned, we also have national programs to support education. So take it away, Miguel.
Thank you, Mark. Hello, everyone. Nice to see a few familiar faces. I just wanted to go through what we've been doing at the height of the pandemic and up to now. We firstly were able to work with the different national agencies on education. There's DepEd, there's CHED, and TESDA, specifically to commit and agree to their request, to find a way to make sure most of the country who have the ability to connect can connect to their learning platform. So specifically with DepEd asked us to find ways to zero rate their learning platform. See DepEd Commons, which we did. And PhilConnect, I believe we're the only telco right now who agreed to zero rate that as well, if I'm not mistaken. TESDA as well is zero rated. So for everyone's understanding, when we say zero rated, that means for as long as you're a Globe or TM subscriber, even there is no data charge for using these platforms. So for as long as you stay within the domain of those platforms. So that is zero rated to this day. As far as learning platforms is concerned, from Globe, apart from what Mark has shared in terms of the business side, we have the Beyond Business Play, which is what we call the Globe e-library. And that is a learning platform, also zero rated, where it serves as a sort of a repository for learning and reading materials curated from K to 12. This was something that we co-launched with DepEd. So to give everyone an idea, the content is around storybooks for kids. These are all under public domain, both international and local, and it can be accessed for free. Apart from the books that are for free, there are also learning engagements, e-learner videos that we've slotted in. If you're familiar with one of our legacy programs with the Ayala Foundation, it was called Text to Teach. This is a consolidation of hundreds of videos in core subjects for early primary, including English, math, science. Dati pa to nung back when Nokia had one of the first smartphones, we were able to slot in content and produce content over the span of 10 years. So this is its new home, which to this day is still very relevant, especially for public schools. As far as ramping up teacher training, we were in close talks with DepEd to understand what are the different learning gaps that Globe can contribute to, at least on the tech side and maybe on providing more resources. So DepEd, as we all understand, has a lot on their plate, and we identified these 5 different learning targets that they sought help from. So what we did, we provided some funding, and we consolidated our partners in teacher training and offered this for free for not just for public schools, but also for private schools that find this relevant. So that's digital literacy, parent support, psychological first aid, which we got very good feedback from. And importantly, also, this is very technical. It's early language literacy to help also address I believe there were the recent PISA results. This is something we wanted to do to help improve teacher delivery of early language literacy. Lastly, at least on my end, is what we call the Digital Thumbprint Program. This is essentially free workshops on responsible online behavior. Part of Globe's thrust is, while we find as many ways as possible to connect the country, we want to make sure everyone we connect is responsible and is protected from all the different online threats and abuses, in particular the online sexual exploitation of children, which we are apparently a hotbed internationally. So we work with DepEd, with UNICEF, with the Safer Kids PH campaign to make sure netizens and children are protected and parents are properly educated. That's it. Back to you. Oh, sorry. Let me just close with this. This is one of our mandates as well for next year. We want to make sure we have continued and close partnerships with these four institutions. So it's DepEd, CHED. We're working closely with CHED for curriculum development around STEM, and we're working with TESDA on content development, all of which are looking at digital means of providing better education delivery. That's it. Back to you, Mark.
Did you say next year? Aren't we
I'm sorry.
2021?
2021. Yeah, I
2021.
keep saying next year. It's
Yeah.
already this year.
Okay. At least maliwanag.
2020 feels like a long year.
Yeah.
I understand you
Like a
completely.
black hole for us. Sometimes I see also myself like checking, is it really 2021?
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, to continue po
Rafi.
our presentation, Sir Melo, we
Yeah.
also have partnerships with the LGUs, no?
With the
and-
LGUs.
Yeah. So there are several LGUs. So say, for example, we have Manila, Quezon City as well, and Makati, and a lot of universities around the Philippines who have partnered with Globe in terms of making sure that they're digitally prepared. And with this would also be our partnership with Google and our current partnership with Microsoft, and Apple as well. So we have a lot of partnerships in order to make sure that online learning and other modes of learning continue. So with all these partner support programs, Miguel mentioned about the Digital Thumbprint program. We also have our webinars, and we're already in our season 2. The thrust of the webinar is to educate our people, and of course, most special education stakeholders, to make sure that they are guided in terms of what to apply in their classroom.
Okay.
And we also have our, of course, online digital literacy training that's free for teachers, as well as, of course, the national conference on digital. So with all these programs, makakaasa po kayo that Globe will be with you all the way.
All right. Rafi, balikan kita dyan sa Bangkok, ano? How are things going in terms of tie-ups ng mga iba't ibang gobyerno sa kanilang mga telcos? Well, of course, we heard Vietnam utilizes radio stations
TV
across
station.
the country.
28 TV stations.
Yes, please. Let me know about this. What's going on?
I think that was highlighted in the message of the ministers because they have a joint state. They released a joint statement last June 18. Tapos nagkaroon din sa mga high officials. These are the undersecretaries and the vice ministers of education, and they emphasize the need to closely collaborate with the essential players. In this case, the telco. For example, in Brunei, they're giving away free data allocation for education application. I think our colleague from Globe has also cited that same initiative. In Indonesia, there's also a partnership between the government and the telco provider. And in other countries as well, they're forging ties, particularly with these essential infrastructure providers to enable the transfer of knowledge through online means. But as I have mentioned in the earlier presentation, iba-iba yung level of granularity. There's no silver bullet, unfortunately, that one solution would fit all. So you will see that even country approaches vary depending on the locality, on the context, because as you know, here in Southeast Asia, we have very advanced countries like Singapore, but we also have from the other end of the spectrum, we have from Myanmar, from Cambodia, who really rely heavily on printed materials. So meron din silang interventions such as the modules. It's very important to them that these textbooks, these learning materials are being facilitated by the ministries, by the counterpart of the Department of Education.
Yeah, Rafi, nabanggit mo, no? Andito yung Singapore, nandito yung Myanmar. Saan nandun ang Pilipinas?
Well, Philippines in terms of it depends, sir, on what criteria you're referring to. But in terms of education, being a Filipino, I'd like to think that we can be at par with them. I mean, it's not too late in the day to say that we can do it. I think what we need to do is to reflect on the things that we have learned from this pandemic. So it's not really a matter of where we are, because putting all countries side by side, it shouldn't be seen as parang one is better than the other. We should, as we have advocated in Simeo, we should be moving forward as one. Just like in this pandemic, we tend to fall into that thinking na this is our country vis-a-vis this country. I think we
Okay.
need to work together.
Yeah. Pero siguro sa grupo ninyo, napapag-usapan din kung gaano kalaki ang budget na nilalaan ng mga pamahalaan sa edukasyon.
That's
Right.
correct.
Have you noticed any increase or decrease in education because of the pandemic?
Because of the pandemic, initially in the report of the ministers, the initial reaction was to focus on the health. But then there's this realization that such a view is myopic, masyadong narrow yung ganong thinking, because we need to also put particular attention on education as well. So ang ginawa ngayon with the massive, the COVID-19 has actually pushed for the development of the learning management systems, the development of open education resources, printed materials that was never before seen. Dati kasi, di ba, nasa back burner lang yung mga online platforms. But then with the closure of schools, all of a sudden, there's this massive push. And as you can see in the report that Dr. Ethel has given, talagang in terms of the rapid pace of the development, the rapid shift to the online learning management system, online platforms, that was never there. Prior to the pandemic, there are some advanced technologies na meron yung mga ibang countries. But now, we can see na halos lahat ng countries, they have their own. We have, just like DepEd, the DepEd Commons, and the other interventions, and working directly with the service providers, with the technology solutions provider.
Yes. Undersecretary Dads, how is the Filipino teacher coping with COVID-19? Because I saw a report from a good friend, Secretary Duque, na baka itap din yung mga teacher sa pagbabakuna, na hindi naman yun ang core function ng mga teacher. Alam ko, nagsiserve sila sa eleksyon, pero hindi ko ma-identify yung teacher na magbabakuna. Paano naman tayo makaka-cope sa reality ng ganito?
I agree with you, Sir Melo, na baka hindi naman professionally prepared ang teacher na mag-administer ng mga vaccines na yan. In terms of yung trabaho nila, of course, may mga nabago. Ibang-iba po ang mga inaasahan natin sa mga kasamang guro natin sa kagawaran. Hindi na lang talaga yung pupunta ka sa silid-aralan. Maraming mga nabago sa ginagawa. Sa monitoring naman po namin, ako personal na mga visit ko ay mga sila, nakaka-proud nga na marami ring nagpapakita ng pagiging malikhain at mataas na antas ng professionalidad. And being a former classroom teacher myself, nakaka-proud po na mas marami ang ganito. Yung pong may mga naririnig din po tayo na nagrereklamo, etc. Pero ang tingin ko po, mas marami yung nagpapakita talaga na makakapag-adjust sila sa mga gawaing bago dahil sa distance learning delivery modality.
Yeah, very good. Yung po ba mga talent natin dun sa television ng DepEd, may talent fee o service credit?
Service credit lang po sila.
Mabuti na yung maliwanag. They are required to produce scripts and they will record it. Pagkatapos, merong timeline na sinusunod. Mahirap po yata sa mga teacher yon na may anak pa rin nag-aaral, pagkatapos tuturuan nila, tapos magpuproduce sila, pero service credit pala. Baka naman pwedeng kahit gift certificate na pang grocery man lang, gano'n.
Sige po, ipapadala ko sa pag-uusapan namin sa team. Pero alam niyo naman po, kahit gusto natin, minsan kailangan magpaliwanag ka sa COA, maghahanap sila ng mga guidelines. Yun nga pong kagustuhan namin na bigyan ng internet allowance yung mga teachers ay parang hindi rin mabilis gawin at madali kasi ang dami ring mga sinasabi na bakit may ganyan. O yung pong 'di ba nagpapa-webinar po kami. Traditionally, may budget kami sa pagkain kasi pag pinapunta mo sa isang training ang teacher ay kailangang siyempre kakain din yan at ano. So mga ganito pong issue ay medyo dagdag na hamon din kasi nabago nga, nakatipid ang gobyerno pero yung pong paraan para ma-motivate naman at ma-compensate ang nakararaming malikhain at dedicated sa ginagawa ay yun na nga po. Mayroon tayong mga constraints na nandyan na kailangang ayusin muna bago maisagawa yung mga pangarap nating dapat gawin para ma-sustain yung motivation.
I can imagine. Meron ba tayong mga teacher na nag-resign na lang because of COVID-19? Meron bang
Wala po kaming nag-gather na report. Mukhang hindi naman po, walang basihan po para sabihin na may mga nag-resign. Unless po may magka-come forward at magsabi ako nag-resign. Ang trend naman po talaga, kahit bago pa dumating si COVID, nung ako yung regional director pa, may mga teachers po na pagdating ng 60, sinasabi, okay na ako, magre-retire na ako kasi ibang-iba na yung klase ng mga mag-aaral na kailangang turuan, mas mapanghamon na kasi iba na po yung mga requirements. So, yun po ay trend bago pa mag-COVID-19 na may mga teachers na gusto nang mag-retire kaagad pag 60 nila.
Pero matanong ko po kayo, Undersecretary, you mentioned 60 years old. Yung mga beyond 60, paano sila nakatugon sa demands ngayon, especially with technology? Were they able to adapt?
Ang maganda po sa DepEd, yung mga ganyang may mga challenges ay tinutulungan po yan ng mga nakabatang kasama. So hindi po talaga yan hahayaan na mag-isa ka na lang dyan, bahala ka sa buhay mo. Wala pong ganon. Nakilala akong teacher na bagong pasok o yung mga matatanda na. Nagtutulungan po sa mga paaralan. So kahit noong unang-una pang dumating ang computer, principal ako noon, talagang tinutulungan po namin yung mga teachers na malapit na mag-retire. Sasabihin ako, hindi na ako sasama dyan sa mga encoding na yan na pwede bang kayo na lang? At hindi naman po sila pinapabayaan.
Okay. Dr. Tugas.
Pero meron din pong mga nagkakaedad na teki rin.
Okay. Dr.
Meron din po. Meron din po magagaling sa technology pero may mga totoo po talaga na may mga nagkakaedad na sasabihin ayaw ko nang mag-aral so kayo na bahala.
All right. Dr. Tugas sa Philippine Normal University, ano yung average age ng inyong mga profesor?
Well, sa ngayon medyo mas mga bata na, mga around 40 to 45 yung average age. Meron din po kaming mga 60 to 64 or 65. Some of them, because of this new challenges in the flexible learning, hindi pa naman talaga naka-schedule pero nung nag-60 na, they decided to retire. No? But others stayed and we provided support para maka-adjust sila.
Okay. So at least may support. Will Globe not go out of its way to teach teachers, well, not necessarily teach teachers, but at least orient them or refresh whatever they know in terms of technology? Mark and Miguel, your idea.
As mentioned nga po earlier, we have teacher training programs po, no? So currently we're running several programs specifically for teachers, and so on the commercial side, we are giving a free online course for those starting teachers talaga na walang background on technology. But for our CSR side, Miguel is currently hand-in-hand working with NEAP, with the DepEd.
That's right.
To make sure that teacher training is continuous. So Miguel, can you talk more about this?
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Yeah, to Mark's point, no, we're working directly with NEAP, and the content that we put out is is the deciding rep would be DepEd. On our end, we are not an education institution, but we do have resources to help DepEd with any gaps that they feel we could serve. For example, the low-hanging fruit is on digital responsibility, which we have content for that over time was developed, and it's I believe it was added as supplementary learning to the DepEd curriculum. On top of that, NAEP also shared they are looking for training and expertise around early language literacy, which we were able to find. And that's the sort of the open dialogue that we're having with DepEd, and it's something that we're looking to have as well with SHED for this year.
Okay, very encouraging, very encouraging. How will Kokopea look at this? Kayo po ba sa Kokopea at magi sa PBED later on, merong mga programs to at least equip our teachers to be prepared for the new challenges? Yes, Attorney Estrada, please.
Yes, definitely. We're moving towards that because prior to the pandemic, as we all know, now we Filipinos, especially including students and also educators, we use the internet for consumption of goods, for socialization, but not for education. Hindi masyado. And we're very happy now that not only the education institutions are moving towards that, no, using the internet platform for education. Kasama na rin yung ating mga providers like Globe, no? Hindi nila nabanggit pero they also partnered with our major member associations like PACU, like the CAP. These are big national organizations, no, of educational institutions. So we're very happy with that. In fact, nung may lumabas na report recently, yung isang UK think tank, I forgot the name, yung sinabi nila na 76 million daw ang social media users in the country with 75 million on Facebook. Minsan makakaisip ka, dahil ang estudyante natin ilang million lang naman, 30 million kung sabi mo na basic ed and college, 75 million on Facebook. So why are we accepting the excuse that they cannot connect, for education when they can do so on these social media platforms? So I think we are a step behind, in terms of using the internet for teaching and learning, and we have to catch up. So there is no reason for us to lag behind. So kasama na rin po dyan yung ating mga more senior faculty and teachers. They have no choice. It is part of their, I think, ethical standards also for teaching professionals to adapt to global standards of teaching as part of their responsibility as professionals.
Attorney, yeah, you said may isang grupo sa UK na nagsabi na merong 76 million who are into Facebook.
Yes, ako po ba?
Yeah.
Opo. This is a regular survey participated by 50 countries or more than 50 countries.
Okay.
Lagi tayong top notcher diyan in terms of usage. Average hours, nataas din tayo. I think we're also in the top. Average of 4 hours a day spent by a Filipino on social media sites. So halos kasabayan na lumabas yung recent result ng Teams. So alam mo, there's that tendency also to look into that, as we look into our new environment in education. We can't help but think also na mabagsak tayo sa mga proficiency standards, and yet we continue to be top notchers in terms of social media usage. Pero merong silver lining, as I've said. Kung kaya nating gamitin yan for other uses, like as I've said, socialization, consumption, bakit hindi sa education? And again, we're very happy that not only the institutions are moving towards that. So kasama na yung government, kasama na yung providers. We're developing learner management systems. We're teaching our teachers and our students to be digital citizens. And that's a good thing.
Yeah. Baka doon sa 75 or 76 million kasama na yung mga troll. Anyway.
Hindi ko natanong pero pwede.
Pwede, no?
Meron lang ako isang point that I'd also like to raise. Kasi the schools now, there's a call for agility and innovation, sa mga schools, especially sa private schools. Kasi kami mas mabilis kami mag-adapt and mag-innovate because we decide based on our institutions and our communities, no, as compared to government institutions. Napakalaki nila, medyo hindi sila ganun kabilis mag-adapt, but there is that call for agility and innovation. Ang problem lang namin is I think we also have to siguro encourage our policymakers to adjust fast, no, in terms of regulation and policies. Kanina nabanggit ni Yusik Dads, no, katulad nun, like incentivizing teachers lang, medyo tumatagal. Imagine for bigger issues, no, policy issues, how it takes so long, no, in order to adjust. So dapat merong counterpart, policy environment that allows that innovation to develop, no.
Okay.
Sabi nga ng isang expert, dati yung think out of the box is so pre-COVID. No? Kasi ngayon sa mga schools, you create your own box.
Yeah.
Kanya-kanya tayo, 'di ba? So but in order to allow that and for education to thrive, no, based on innovation, policy environment should allow that. Hindi tayo babalik sa pre-COVID na lagi tayong titingnan natin yung policy before, no. Policy should adjust and hindi tayo yung dapat bumalik sa old policy.
All right. Love, from PIBED,
Yes.
anong masasabi ninyo sa nagaganap ngayon? Siyempre, yung mga bumubuo ng PIBED are businessmen. Do they see education as in its twilight zone already, or is it still sunrise? Ano ba?
Are you asking, Melo, if I may clarify lang, from a business perspective or an education reform perspective?
Business perspective muna, dahilan sa kung merong pagkalugi, baka mawala na rin yung private institutions. I'm worried of that.
In our press briefing, actually, and not to minimize the difficulties that the private schools are facing now, no, but what I heard from our chairman and those who are also engaged in the business of education, well, I guess entrepreneurs always say not to waste a crisis, or so not there are opportunities in a crisis, and so maybe not that those two extremes like sunrise or twilight zone, but they do see opportunities for investment pa rin naman. Because whenever there are gaps, we will always, in a capitalist society, I guess, we would always need people to fill in those gaps. As what Attorney Joseph was saying earlier, they are looking at sustainability. They are talking about creating those boxes. So to speak. So as they do that, I'm sure there are business opportunities there. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. Pero yung mga reforms na kailangan, given the conditions today, do you think we will ever see the light of day na magkakaroon ng pagbabago?
I think so naman. I want to say that I am at the end of the day, a hopeful person. Otherwise, yung pangalan ko medyo misnomer if I don't believe in the good of things. But there's also this concept of defensive pessimism, no, and that's why we really want to highlight this problem para we do what it takes to fix this crisis. So marami namang pwedeng gawin, like number one, so we were mentioning online, and I really believe in this, like making sure that we have a good online education and digital education, not just a platform, but really a system and infrastructure. Kasi Facebook was mentioned, there were 76 million or so, but in a survey by DepEd of its 23 million students, 1.9 million learners may access sa computer, 6.2 million learners cellphone na mobile, and 3 million learners connected to the internet. Marami ding schools na not only are they not connected to the internet, but about 7,000 or so last mile schools don't even have electricity. So for us to really be able to maximize the benefits of this online learning and make sure that we don't suffer many learning losses, we need to address that infrastructure problem and also have massive teacher training to make sure that they are able to teach in a digital space. We need to have all these modules that need to be improved as well. So yung mga ganyan. So number one is really digital investment in digital transformation of our education system. Kasi radio is okay, but then pag nakikinig ka lang, you can do other things. Eh. And as you said nga, di ba, Sir Melo, yung mga kaklase mo before, pumapasa dahil at least they're there. They are present.
Attendance.
Di ba? They attend. So paano na lang kung nakikinig lang sila ng radyo or TV tapos they're doing something else. So wala na talagang natutunan. So that's number one, digital transformation. The second one, and I alluded to this, the teacher training can really be improved, and I'm glad that Dr. Burt is here. PNU is one of the partners of PBED in our teacher scholarship program, and we see that there are so many things that can be done to improve teacher training. We need to do more in attracting the best and brightest to the teaching profession. Once they are there, we want to retain them, make sure that their morale is high. You mentioned kanina na they shouldn't be doing things that it's not really part of their job description. Their job is to teach, and to teach well. And so we need to have that support system to help them do that. And also, I think ultimately those two things, and I think we can do those things together, with partnerships like Globe for the digital transformation. But ultimately, we need to put in more resources in education. We understand that during a crisis, ang daming nagko-compete, like, oh, should we put the money in the vaccine and all these, ganito, ganyan. But ultimately, we think that education, kasi you asked this question of Rafi, and in terms of budgets, and he didn't give numbers, but if you look at the trends for us in terms of percentage of GDP for education in the Philippines, downtrend nasa 3 point something na lang tayo as percentage of GDP spent in education. So we want more resources for education, and we believe that if we do those things, adding more resources in education, we can be creative in finding these resources, investing in digital transformation and investing in our teachers, we can do something to help address this learning crisis.
Very good. Very nice. Undersecretary Dads, what is there to hope for 2021? Dr. Dads? Hello? Nawala si Yusek. Yes, Yusek. Yusek.
Hi,
Yeah.
Sir Melo.
Ano pong
Of course, the secretary is...
Yes.
Si secretary po ay maliwanag naman yung mga sinasabi niya na ngayong yung po mga local governments are distributing gadgets that will make us reduce reliance on the printed SLMs. We'll continue to implement sulong edukalidad. Yung 4 na pillars ay yung pa rin yun. Yung curriculum review will be hopefully completed ngayong taon. And then we'll of course intensify efforts for providing learning resources. We will upskill and capacitate our fellow teachers and tap the resources of our partners. Para po sa siyempre, din po sa strand ko, ang quarters 3 and 4 learning resources, we hope to source out from the private publishers para naman po ma-reduce na rin yung trabaho ng mga kasama namin, and at the same time maximize yung contribution ng private sector sa ating mga ginagawa. At patuloy po kaming magmo-monitor at titingnan kung ano pa ang mga kailangan gawin para mas maisaayos at maging mabisa ang ating mga ginagawa. Siyempre po, masaya kami na ang PBED at ang lahat ng mga partners ay palaging nandyan to provide support and feedback on how else we could improve the things we do.
Okay. You have the money? Do you have the money to spend for all your requirements?
As usual, we have been allocated a significant bulk of the budget, but kung sasabihin mo po money for everything we need, wala naman pong ganyan sa gobyerno. We would have to prioritize.
Yeah.
So
I'm sorry.
we have been given funds.
Yeah, I'm sorry for asking the question because there will be this impression na laging kulang yung pera. Kaya siguro natanong ko, kailangan meron ba talaga? Pero at least meron tayong magagamit, no?
May magagamit naman po.
Yeah, good. Very good. Dr. Bert, sa Philippine Normal University, meron ba kayong idea kung nasan yung graduates ninyo? Where are they? Napapakinabangan ba sila ng sektor? Please go ahead.
Thank you. Most of them are actually teaching in public schools already, Sir Melo. But I think we have also a number of our graduates teaching in private schools, but mostly in DepEd schools, I suppose.
Yeah, and that's the reason kaya laging hirapan yung Alumni Association dahil walang makolekta sa graduates. Di tulad ng graduate sa UP na School of Economics, laging may pera yan. Okay.
But we are happy that that our graduates basically are contributing a lot to the development of public school system.
Very good. At least, meron po ba tayong paraan para ma-attract yung the best and the brightest to Philippine Normal University to go into teaching?
Well, I think that was mentioned by Ms. Lava a while ago. No? We are very thankful to PPI for providing scholarship support to very good students entering teacher education. So we support that program, and I hope that there will be more programs similar to that to encourage excellent high school graduates to enter the teaching profession, because we really need good materials, no, to enter the teacher education. We still believe that at the end of the day, it's the quality of teachers that we have that will improve the quality of education in the country.
Okay. Attorney Estrada, your thoughts about the near future?
Well, yung future of education from a legal and policy perspective, I would say we have enough education principles in our laws. Basic foundation of our education system, we have enough principles not only for education to be sustained but also to thrive. No? Kailangan lang talaga natin is magtulong-tulong tayo in order to revisit all of these principles, no, and to be able to continue. At palagay ko, when we go back, no, when we go out again, no, hindi ko sasabihin na go back to normal, but at least when we go limited face-to-face and the economic situation is recovered, I think we will have many gains also from this experience. Kasi yun palang going back to the essentials, focusing on the learner, malaking bagay ito for education. Education is really a concern of everyone. Ang isang magandang nangyari dito, education has brought together people, institutions, agencies, both government and private. And it's a concern of everyone. Wala pa akong narinig na kumontra about quality education, about continuity. Of course, may mga discussions about that, but has never been that challenging, no. Iba-iba lang tayo ng paraan, but I think we are headed towards one direction. So I'm positive, hindi COVID positive, but I'm hopeful that we will be better, no, when we have overcome this pandemic.
Yes. Love from PPI?
Yes. Same question po ba?
Yeah, in the near future.
Yes, I am hopeful that we can make things happen, as Attorney Erap said. You know, like, everyone has good intentions. We are working for the same goal, which is quality education for all Filipinos. No one left behind. There are things that we need to address, like, gaps. But if we just put our collective minds to it and hearts into it, I believe that we can make things happen for Philippine education. So, in the near future, I am hopeful but also looking forward to real action. Kasi madali lang maging hopeful eh, pero when your skin in the game is being asked, or when you're actually required to do something, yun yung medyo tagilid tayo. So I am hopeful, but I'm also really looking forward to people doing their part and pitching in.
Good. From Globe, Miguel and Mark, yes, your thoughts about the near future?
On our end po, siguro we need to really reinvent and reimagine education at this point, because the landscape is changing. There's a lot of trends happening, and I'm kind of sure that in the next couple of months there will be more technology solutions that will be available for our schools. But I see a future that the gaps are gonna be not that wide enough so that everyone in the private and the public school sectors of education will get to enjoy all these perks. Kasi nga po, we see naman the disparity of education in the Philippines, and much as we want to cater all the those who are in need, we really have to choose specific segments lang. But for Globe, we are currently in the process of reinventing the way children learn, our students learn. And we hope to provide all those kinds of solutions to you. Yun po. Miguel?
Yeah, Miguel.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I think one thing I'd like the team to take away in our own research and appreciation of the local and global landscape, you can take a look at any industry that is using tech, and there's often a direct replacement to the human touch. The one thing that does not have that replacement is in education. You can look at industry, you can look at manufacturing, agriculture. All of these, technology has gone to a point where you could already replace a person, but not in education. And what I want to say is, technology still remains to be just a tool for us to use. It was brought up earlier that there really is no silver bullet. Sa basketball, you don't have a Michael Jordan or a LeBron James to save everything. There has to be this collective contribution for everyone. And at least for Globe side, we do have the capabilities to create more access to connectivity. We're looking forward to working with as many government institutions and private sector, nonprofit, to see how we can contribute in ways that we can and can readily do. Yun lang po. We are very encouraged by this year. Last year was really weird. This year, I think is a transition, but I think things are looking up.
Good, great. Mr. Undersecretary, from the DepEd, parting shots, ano pong mensahe ninyo sa ating mga kasama sa Press Institute at bala nang nanonood sa atin? Your message, please.
Sa muli po, malaki ang aming pasasalamat sa lahat ng stakeholders. Yung po mga panawagan ni Love, ni Attorney Erap, at ng mga kasama natin sa Globe ay, at kahit po sa Simyo, ay rin po natin yan, panawagan ng kagawaran ng edukasyon. Patuloy po tayong magkapit-bisig, magbayanihan upang ang bawat batang Pilipino ay maihanda natin sa kinabukasan kanilang pinapangarap. Mabuhay po kayo sa PPI. Salamat na muli sa pagkakataon, Sir Melo.
Salamat po. Rafi, mula sa Bangkok, your message please.
Yes, thank you for this. I think our parting shot would be probably this COVID-19 pandemic has stressed the need for all of us to make sure that no one is left behind. I think yun yung message, regardless of the medium, regardless of the platform, the messenger, we'd like to stress that in the near future, that should still be the guiding principle, particularly because yung marginalized, the underprivileged, they're the most affected when schools are closed, when learning does not happen. So we need to create and foster and sustain that environment where all means all of us progressing as one, not just in the Philippines, but in the region, in order to build a better normal.
Yeah, thank you. Ariel, may pahabol ka mula sa PPI. Paki-unmute lang. Yan, okay.
Pwede pa bang magtanong, Kuya Melo? Saglit lang.
O sige.
Very quick.
Hindi pa naman umalis yung guest natin eh.
Anybody can answer. magkaiba po ba ang problema o yung gravity ng problema between the public sector and the private sector? And having said that, can you hear me?
Yes, of course.
Napag-uusapan yung resources, wala pong problema in terms of financial resources sa education sector sa public.
Sa public. O di DepEd na pasasagutin natin.
Okay.
Undersecretary Dads, please. Undersecretary Dads, you're still with us, right? Yes. May tanong po.
Yes po. Ang sinasabi po natin, tayo naman po ang nagdidesisyon ng financing, yung mga legislators at yung priorities ng government. At kasama po sa budget process yung pag-defend naman ng kagawaran ng mga proposals nito. Pagkatapos pong maihain yung General Appropriations Act at ma-approve ay bumabalik po kami. In fact, katatapos namin kahapon ng mga meetings namin, reminding ourselves that these are the resources we have and so we have to make adjustments in the priorities. So sinasabi po natin na kasama sa parang kasanayan na dapat alam ng bawat taga-DepEd ay kung ano yung nabigay pagkatapos ng proseso ay kailangang mabigyan ng tamang priorities. Sabi nga po natin, very obvious po yan. Kami rin po, we have to pay attention to the most essential things bago yung mga iba pang mga pangarap natin gustong gawin. At siyempre po, mapala din ang DepEd na yung mga hindi kayang mabigay ng national government, nabibigay ng local government. At nandyan din po ang ating mga development partners at mga non-government organizations. Salamat po.
Pero Yusek, I'm under the impression na pahirapan ba ito? You mentioned about priorities and I fully understand na kung ano po yung essential, yun po yung kailangan dapat matugunan. Pero parang it looks like na parang pahirapan. Parang kung if they're all about, if all the efforts are all about altruism and malasakit, siguro yung di ba triple siguro yung problema ng mga teachers ngayon in the time of the pandemic, so that probably there's going to be a way or ways para mapadali na matugunan yung essentials or priorities na binabanggit niyo.
Gusto ko rin pong bigyan din na ako 35 years na sa DepEd, yung mga recent years mas maganda po ang sitwasyon ng DepEd. Ang mga priorities po ng national government in the last decade have been really to support efforts to provide what DepEd needs in terms of facilities. Yung mga ka-generation ko, makikita nyo naman po pag naglibot kayo sa mga probinsya, ibang-iba po ang mga facilities natin. So, ang ibig po nating sabihin na kung ang tanong po ay may seryoso bang effort para dagdagan yung investment ng gobyerno, mayroon po. Ang sinasabi ko lang po, hindi pa natin pwedeng sabihin na lahat ng pangarap namin nandiyan na. And palagay ko kahit sa advanced countries, wala namang ganong school system na nagsasabi all we need is provided for by the government. Kaya ang binibigyang diin ko po yung idea na patuloy pa rin tayong nag-ooperate according to the priorities where the most essentials are the ones given priority as well.
Attention to. Or Yusek, meron pa isang katanungan, probably last na ito. Are we relying heavily on the private sector assistance para matugunan yung mga pangangailangan ng mga teachers natin?
Hindi po ganun yung yung ginagawa ng DepEd. Palagi naman po tayong may mga provisions na binibigay at although sabi nga natin, halimbawa itong sa mga learning resources, lalo na sa first quarter, dahil yun na nga po ang pag-release ng mga pera sa gobyerno ay hindi naman madali. So kung kailangan na siya, nag-tap tayo ng mga local governments at other resources. Pero mayroon naman pong binibigay ang gobyerno. So we are saying na kasama na po sa kinukonsider namin syempre yung annual Brigada Eskwela investments ng Philippine Society. And at the same time, yung nga rin po, yung mga pera na binibigay sa atin ng national government.
Gusto ko lang din banggitin, Kuya Melo, yung binanggit ni Ma'am Love kanina kasi I'd like to highlight the fact that this time, these critical times talaga should afford everyone to get the help that we really need. And I think she especially mentioned about the role of media in bringing to the fore more stories from the ground, meaning storya ng mga kabataan, storya ng mga teachers, hindi lang yung from the top lagi eh. I think this is also a call, a challenge for us in the media sector na pahalagahan din yung mga maliliit na mga boses na nasa baba, yung hindi siguro nabibigyan Kuya Melo ng pagkakataon na maibahagi yung nararamdaman nila. And I think it's really going to be a conscious effort for the journalists, for the media practitioner, for all communicators for that matter, na siguro ito na lang yung tulong, Ma'am Love, no, na binabanggit nyo, tulong ng media kasi hindi naman direkta makakatulong ang media, but yung role namin, yung function namin as watchdog, not only watchdog, truth tellers, and at the same time, going beyond the call of duty of what does it mean to change a life of one person or isang bata through our story. Parang ganun po yung binabanggit nyo, Ma'am Love. Ano? And having said that, Kuya Melo, maraming salamat, Ma'am Love. Kuya Melo, si Attorney Gus is already on in the meeting room.
Yes.
You might want to call him later. Pero salamat po for giving the opportunity to interact with our panelists, our resource person. Thank you very much for joining us today. I hope we can get you anytime if we talk about mga significant discourses on education, etc., etc. Maraming salamat po. Thanks,
Okay.
Kuya Melo.
So we're joined by Attorney Getz. Please join us. Your message, please.
Thank you very much, Melo. Yeah, sorry, I think I'm a little bit late, so I'm just arriving here for the closings. My name is Götz Heinig. I'm the resident representative of the German Untitled Foundation. And we are running this monthly roundtable discussion with the PPI every month from January to December. I hope it was good. I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope especially it was helpful in order to improve the education system here for the wonderful year of 2021. As I have missed everything, so I deeply apologize for that. And I hope for you it was good and you enjoyed this morning. Thank you very much.
Yes, it is.
Yes, of course. Yusek Dads, pabukas lang nung camera mo for our picture together. Love, may dadagdag ka? Would you care to add something? May dadagdag ka ba?
No, I just said ang ganda ng truth tellers na sinabi ni Sir Ariel. I just watched kasi an interview of Christian Amanpour and she actually differentiated the role of media between truth tellers and neutrality, and she actually says that the role of media is to tell the truth and not just be neutral, and because you might run the risk of conflating or parang hiding the truth because you want to be neutral. So in any case, ang ganda nun. Kaya ako pumalakpak kasi ang ganda ng sinabi ni Sir Ariel. We really count on the media to amplify stories on the ground. So thank you for the partnership.
Thank you po.
All right. I'd like to say thank you to everyone. Si Sister Rosan Malilien sent a message. She's supposed to join us overseas. Nasa Surigao siya eh. Kaya lang biglang nag-board meeting yung kanyang university, kaya hindi siya nakadalo. Pero okay sana kung narito rin siya to give us a picture of what it is in the province. I'd like to end by quoting a man who said something like this. Education is the great engine of personal development. It is through education that the daughter of a peasant can become a doctor, that the son of a mine worker can become to head of the mine, that a child of farm workers can become the president of a great nation. It is what we make out of what we have, not what we are given, that separates one person from another. And the quote comes from a man named Nelson Mandela. With that, I say thank you to everyone, because the topic is COVID and education. Next month, we will look into the COVID-19 conditions in Asia and in the Philippines. Thank you very much. God bless us all. Thank you.
Thank you.